My daughter handed me an envelope at my 72nd birthday party and said, "This is your gift, Mom. You are going to love it." Inside was a brochure for a nursing home and a typed letter informing me that I had 30 days to vacate my own house. The house I had paid for, the house where I raised her, the house where her father took his last breath in my arms. She smiled as I read it, and her husband poured champagne for the guests. That night, I discovered that my entire family had been planning my removal for over a year. But what they did not know, what they could never have imagined, was that I had been preparing for this moment my entire life. And the truth I was about to reveal would destroy everything they thought they knew about me. Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Virginia Ashford, and for 47 years, I was the invisible woman, the quiet wife, the dedicated mother, the grandmother who showed up early and stayed late. I cooked every holiday meal. I babysat every grandchild. I wrote every check when someone needed help. And I did it all without complaint, without recognition, without ever asking for anything in return. Because that is what good mothers do. That is what I was taught. Give until there is nothing left, and then give some more. My husband Robert understood this about me. He loved me for it, but he also warned me. "Virginia," he said to me once, about 3 years before he passed, "you cannot pour from an empty cup. One day, they will drain you completely, and you will have nothing left for yourself." I kissed his forehead and told him not to worry. I told him that family was everything, that our children would never hurt us, that love always comes back around. He looked at me with those tired eyes of his, the eyes that had seen too much of the world, and he said something I will never forget. "Love does not always come back, Virginia. Sometimes it just takes." I should have listened. I should have paid attention to the signs that were already there, even then. But I was too busy being needed, too busy being useful, too busy being the mother I thought they deserved. My daughter Catherine was born in 1978, the year I turned 25. She came into the world screaming, and she never really stopped. She was a difficult child, demanding and temperamental, but I loved her fiercely. I told myself that her intensity was a gift, that one day she would channel all that fire into something magnificent. I was wrong. She channeled it into cruelty instead. Before I continue, if you have ever discovered a painful truth too late, make sure you are subscribed. Some stories can only be understood by those who have lived them. Catherine married a man named Douglas Whitmore when she was 28 years old. I did not like him from the start, but I kept my mouth shut. He was smooth, too smooth, with perfect teeth and a firm handshake and eyes that calculated everything. He came from old money, or so he claimed, and he looked at my modest home with barely concealed disdain during their first visit. But Catherine was in love, or she said she was, and Robert told me to stay out of it. "Let her make her own choices," he said. "She is a grown woman now." So I smiled at the wedding. I wrote them a check for $15,000 as a gift. I helped them move into their new apartment. I babysat their children when they came along, first Harrison, then Amelia. I gave and gave and gave, and I never once questioned whether any of it would come back to me. The years passed the way years do, slowly at first, and then all at once. Robert retired from his engineering firm at 65. I retired from my position as a hospital administrator at 62. We had saved carefully our entire lives, invested wisely, lived below our means. By the time Robert died, we had accumulated nearly $2.3 million in savings and investments, plus the house, which was worth another $800,000 in the current market. I never told Catherine the exact numbers. I never told anyone. Robert and I had agreed long ago that our finances were our private business. We would help when we could, but we would never make our children feel entitled to what we had built. After Robert passed, I became more involved in Catherine's life. I thought it would help with the grief, having family around. I drove 45 minutes each way to pick up Harrison from school when Catherine was too busy with her charity luncheons. I took Amelia to her dance classes every Wednesday and Saturday. I cooked dinner for them twice a week, cleaned their house when their housekeeper quit, loaned them money when Douglas's business ventures failed, which they often did. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was building memories. I was building my own cage instead. The first sign came 3 years after Robert died. I was 69 years old, still sharp, still active, still driving myself everywhere and managing my own affairs. Catherine called me one afternoon, her voice sweet in that particular way that meant she wanted something. "Mom," she said, "Douglas and I have been talking, and we think it might be time for you to consider moving somewhere smaller, somewhere easier to manage." I felt a chill run through me, but I kept my voice steady. "What do you mean by that, Catherine?" "You know," she continued, "that big house is a lot for one person. All those stairs, all that yard work. It must be so lonely for you there." "I am not lonely," I said. "I have my friends. I have my garden. I have my life." "But Mom," she pressed, "we worry about you. What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you forget to turn off the stove?" "I have not forgotten anything, Catherine. I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself." There was a pause, and then her voice changed. It became sharper, more impatient. "Fine," she said. "We were just trying to help. But do not come crying to us when you cannot handle it anymore." She hung up before I could respond. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I had taught Catherine to bake cookies, where Robert and I had shared thousands of meals, where my grandchildren had done their homework at the worn wooden table. I looked around at the walls covered with family photographs, at the window above the sink that looked out over my rose garden, at the clock that had hung in the same spot for 35 years. I was not ready to leave. I would never be ready to leave. But something had shifted that day. A crack had appeared in the foundation of everything I believed about my daughter. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself she was just concerned. I told myself that mothers and daughters have disagreements sometimes, and it does not mean anything. I was lying to myself, of course. I would continue lying to myself for another 3 years. The second sign came at Christmas, 8 months after that phone call. I had prepared dinner for 12 people, as I did every year. Turkey, ham, all the sides, 3 different pies. I started cooking 3 days in advance. I set the table with my grandmother's china, the china I had been saving for Catherine to inherit. Everyone arrived around 2 in the afternoon, and I noticed immediately that something was wrong. Catherine and Douglas kept exchanging looks across the room. Harrison, who was 17 then, barely acknowledged me. Only Amelia, my sweet 13-year-old granddaughter, hugged me like she meant it. The dinner conversation was strained. Every time I tried to ask about their lives, I received one-word answers. Douglas spent most of the meal on his phone. Catherine kept glancing at her watch, as if she had somewhere more important to be. After dessert, I brought out the presents I had carefully selected for each of them. A cashmere sweater for Catherine, a vintage watch for Douglas, a gaming system for Harrison, a beautiful art set for Amelia because she had told me she wanted to be a painter. They opened their gifts without much enthusiasm. "Thank you, Mom," Catherine said flatly, already folding the sweater back into its box. "This is nice." That was it. No real appreciation, no acknowledgement of the thought I had put into each gift, no recognition that I had spent hours, days, choosing things I thought they would love. Then Douglas cleared his throat. "Virginia," he said, using my first name the way he always did, as if we were business associates rather than family. "We have something we need to discuss with you." I felt my stomach tighten. "What is it, Douglas?" He glanced at Catherine, who nodded slightly. We have been looking into some options for you, he said. Senior living communities, places where you would be well taken care of. I set down my coffee cup very carefully. I see, I said. And what prompted this discussion? Catherine leaned forward. Mom, you are almost 70. You live alone in a huge house. It is not safe. It is not practical. We think you would be happier somewhere with people your own age. Happier, I repeated. You think I would be happier being removed from my home and placed in a facility with strangers? It is not a facility, Douglas said with a condescending smile. These are luxury communities. Golf courses, swimming pools, social activities. You would love it. No, I said firmly. I would not love it. I am not leaving my home. The table went silent. Then Harrison, my grandson, who I had driven to school for 2 years, who I had helped with his homework, who I had tucked into bed during sleepovers, spoke for the first time all evening. Grandma, he said, you are being selfish. We are trying to help you, and you are just thinking about yourself. I stared at him, this child I had loved since the moment he was born, and I saw nothing but contempt in his eyes. I am being selfish, I said slowly, for wanting to stay in my own home, for wanting to live my own life. Yes, Catherine snapped, you are being selfish. Do you have any idea how stressful it is for us, worrying about you all the time, wondering if you have fallen, wondering if you are losing your mind? I have not lost my mind, I said, my voice shaking now. And if my living independently is such a burden to you, perhaps you should stop worrying. I can take care of myself. Douglas shook his head. Virginia, you are in denial. We have spoken to doctors, professionals. They all say that women your age need to start planning for the future. What doctors? I demanded. What professionals? Who have you been talking to about me? That is not important, he said dismissively. What is important is that you start being realistic. The house is worth a lot of money. If we sold it now, we could set you up in a beautiful community and still have plenty left over for... He stopped, catching himself, but it was too late. I had heard it. The word he did not say. Plenty left over for them. That is what this is really about, I said quietly. The house, the money, that is what you want. Mom, Catherine said, her voice suddenly softer, more manipulative. That is not fair. We are doing this for you. No, I said, standing up from the table. You are doing this for yourselves. And I think it is time for you all to leave. The looks on their faces were almost worth the pain of saying those words. Almost. They gathered their things in stunned silence. At the door, Catherine turned to me, and for just a moment, I thought I saw something like guilt in her eyes. But then it was gone, replaced by that hard, calculating expression I was starting to know too well. You are going to regret this, Mom, she said. You are going to need us someday, and we might not be there. I watched them drive away, and I stood in my empty house surrounded by the wreckage of Christmas dinner, the uneaten food, the torn wrapping paper, the silence that seemed to press in from all sides. That night, for the first time since Robert died, I cried myself to sleep. The months that followed were strange and quiet. Catherine called occasionally, but our conversations were tense and brief. She would ask how I was doing, and I would say fine, and then there would be nothing else to say. I saw my grandchildren less and less. Harrison was too busy with school, Catherine said. Amelia had activities. Douglas was traveling for work. There was always an excuse, always a reason why they could not visit, could not call, could not acknowledge that I existed except when they needed something from me. Because they did still need things. That never changed. In February, Catherine called to ask if I could loan Douglas $50,000 for a business investment. It is a sure thing, Mom, she said. He will pay you back within 6 months with interest. I said no. There was a long silence, and then she hung up without saying goodbye. In April, she called again. Harrison needed money for a summer program. $10,000. Very prestigious. Great for his college applications. I said no. The silence was even longer this time. In June, she called to tell me that Amelia was struggling in school and needed a private tutor. Could I help with the cost? $400 a week. I said no. Are you trying to punish us? She finally asked, her voice tight with anger. No, Catherine. I am trying to teach you that I am not your personal bank. We are your family, she said. Family helps each other. Family also respects each other, I replied. Family does not try to force an elderly woman out of her home so they can sell it for profit. That is not what we were doing. I hung up before she could say anything else. The summer passed slowly. I tended my garden, read my books, had lunch with my friends from the hospital. I tried to convince myself that I was fine, that I did not need my daughter or her family, that I could be happy on my own. But the truth is, I was lonely. The truth is, I missed them. The truth is, I lay awake at night wondering what I had done wrong, wondering if maybe they were right, wondering if maybe I was being selfish. That is the cruelest part of getting older. You start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder if the people who are supposed to love you might know better than you do about your own life. You start to believe that maybe you are the problem. I was not the problem. I know that now. But it took me another 2 years, and a betrayal so deep I still feel the wound, to finally understand. My 71st birthday came and went without a card from Catherine. No call, no flowers, no visit, just silence. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself that birthdays were not important at my age. I told myself that maybe she was just busy, just distracted, just going through something difficult. I was still making excuses for her. I was still protecting her, even then, even after everything. The call came 3 weeks later. It was Amelia, my granddaughter, the only one who still seemed to have any warmth in her heart. Grandma, she said, her voice small and scared, I need to tell you something, but you cannot tell Mom I called. What is it, sweetheart? They are planning something, Mom and Dad and Harrison. I have heard them talking late at night when they think I am asleep. They want to take your house. My blood ran cold. What do you mean, take my house? They have been meeting with lawyers, Grandma. They want to say you have dementia, that you cannot take care of yourself, that you need a guardian to manage your affairs. And they want that guardian to be Mom. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Are you sure about this, Amelia? She was crying now. They have papers, Grandma. Big folders full of papers. They have been collecting things, trying to find proof that you are losing your mind. Dad says once they get control, they can sell the house and the investments and everything, and you will have no say in it. I sat down slowly on the edge of my bed. How long? I asked. How long have they been planning this? I do not know, she said. Months, maybe longer. Harrison is really into it. He keeps talking about how much money he is going to get when you... She could not finish the sentence. When I die, I said flatly. She sobbed. Grandma, I do not want you to die. I love you. You are the only person in this family who has ever really loved me. I am so scared. Listen to me, Amelia, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm even though my heart was racing. I need you to be brave. I need you to keep your eyes and ears open. Can you do that for me? I can try. Good girl. And Amelia, do not let them know you told me. It is important that they think I do not know anything. Okay, Grandma, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart, more than you will ever know. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my bedroom for a long time. The woman I had raised, the daughter I had sacrificed everything for, was planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could steal my money. She was going to take my home, my savings, my dignity. She was going to throw me into some facility where I would die alone and forgotten while she spent everything I had worked for. I thought about Robert, about the warnings he had given me. I thought about all the years I had given to Catherine, all the love I had poured into her, all the times I had put her needs before my own. And I thought about what he had said to me all those years ago. Love does not always come back, Virginia. Sometimes it just takes. He was right. But what my daughter did not know, what she could never have imagined, was that I was not the helpless old woman she thought I was. I had spent my entire career in hospital administration. I had managed budgets of millions of dollars. I had negotiated contracts, handled lawsuits, dealt with some of the most difficult people imaginable. I had survived breast cancer at 55, a hip replacement at 62, and the death of the love of my life at 66. I was not weak. I was not confused. I was not ready to be put out to pasture. If Catherine wanted a war, she was going to get one. But it would be fought on my terms, with my weapons, and she would never see it coming. The first thing I did was call my lawyer, a man named Theodore Gaines, who had been handling my affairs for over 20 years. I told him everything Amelia had shared with me, and I asked him what my options were. Virginia, he said seriously, this is very concerning. If your daughter is trying to establish a conservatorship over you, she will need to prove that you are incapable of managing your own affairs. The burden of proof is on her, but these cases can be difficult. What do I need to do? I asked. You need to establish beyond any doubt that you are mentally competent. Get a full neurological evaluation, a cognitive assessment, documentation from multiple doctors that you are of sound mind. You also need to be careful about what you say and do around your family. If they are gathering evidence against you, any small slip could be used against you. I understood. I thanked Theodore and told him I would be in touch. Then I made another call, this one to a private investigator named Marcus Webb. A friend from the hospital had recommended him years ago when she was going through a difficult divorce. He was expensive but thorough, and he knew how to be discreet. Mr. Webb, I said when he answered, I need your help. My family is trying to have me declared incompetent so they can take my assets. I need to know exactly what they are planning and who they are working with. There was a pause. Mrs. Ashford, he said, these cases are always complicated. Are you sure you want to go down this road? Once you start investigating your own family, there is no going back. I know, I said, but they started this. I am just going to finish it. Fair enough, he said. I will need a retainer of $10,000, and I will provide weekly reports on my findings. Send me the retainer today, and I will start immediately. I wrote the check that afternoon. Over the following weeks, Marcus Webb proved worth every penny. He discovered that Catherine and Douglas had indeed consulted with 3 different attorneys about establishing a conservatorship over me. He found records of phone calls to my doctors, attempts to access my medical records, inquiries to the bank about my accounts. He even found evidence that Douglas had been researching my property values and investment portfolios, gathering information for what could only be a complete financial takeover. But the most devastating discovery came at the end of the 3rd week. Virginia, Marcus said during one of our phone calls, I need to tell you something, and it is not going to be easy to hear. Tell me, I said. I need to know everything. I found evidence that your daughter has been systematically draining your finances for years. Credit cards opened in your name, small withdrawals from a joint account you probably forgot existed, loans taken out using your property as collateral. I sat down heavily. How much? Best I can tell, somewhere around $340,000 over the past 8 years. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. $340,000. That is theft, I managed to say. Yes, ma'am, it is. And if you want to press charges, you have every legal right to do so. But here's the thing. If you press charges now, they will know you are on to them. They will destroy evidence, cover their tracks, maybe even accelerate their plans to get you declared incompetent before you can fight back. So what do you suggest? I suggest we keep gathering evidence. Let them think you do not know anything. Give them rope to hang themselves. And when you are ready, when you have everything you need, then you strike. And they will never see it coming. I agreed to his plan. It was hard, waiting, knowing what they had done to me, pretending everything was normal. But I had learned patience in my 71 years. I could wait a little longer. The call came 2 months later, on a Tuesday afternoon in early September. Catherine's voice was bright and cheerful, the way it used to be when she was a child and wanted something. "Mom," she said, "we have been talking, and we realize we have been terrible about staying in touch. We want to make it up to you. How about a birthday dinner?" My birthday was not for another 6 weeks, but I kept my voice pleasant. "That sounds lovely, dear. What did you have in mind?" "We thought we would have it at our house," she said. "The whole family. Harrison, Amelia, Douglas, everyone. It will be a real celebration." "When?" "October 15th, she said. "It is a Saturday. We will make all your favorites." I knew immediately that something was wrong. Catherine had not made me a birthday dinner in over a decade. She had not invited me to her home for any occasion in nearly 2 years. Whatever this was, it was not a celebration. It was a trap. But I said yes. I said I would be delighted. I said I was looking forward to seeing everyone. And then I called Marcus Webb and told him to be ready. The 6 weeks before the dinner party were the longest of my life. I had my cognitive tests done, 3 separate evaluations by 3 different doctors, all of whom confirmed that I was mentally sharp and completely capable of managing my own affairs. I reviewed all the evidence Marcus had gathered, pages and pages documenting my family's betrayal. I met with Theodore Gaines to update my will and establish an ironclad trust that would protect my assets from any attempt at conservatorship. And I waited. Amelia called me twice during that time, her voice always hushed and scared. "Grandma, something is happening," she said during the second call. "They are talking about the dinner party all the time, but it does not sound like a birthday party. It sounds like, I do not know, like a trial or something." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Harrison keeps practicing what he is going to say, like a speech. And Mom and Dad have been meeting with someone, a doctor, I think, but not their regular doctor, someone new. Do you know his name?" "Dr. Reginald Morris," she whispered. "I heard Dad say it on the phone." I wrote down the name and thanked her. After we hung up, I did some research. Dr. Reginald Morris was a psychiatrist who specialized in geriatric mental health assessments. He had been involved in several controversial conservatorship cases, often testifying on behalf of families seeking to have elderly relatives declared incompetent. They were bringing in a hired gun. I called Marcus immediately. "I need everything you can find on Dr. Reginald Morris," I said, "and I need it before October 15th. What Marcus discovered was worse than I could have imagined. Dr. Morris had a pattern of providing diagnoses that supported whatever outcome his clients wanted. He had been disciplined by the medical board twice for ethical violations. He had been named in 3 lawsuits by families who claimed he had helped railroaded their elderly relatives into unnecessary conservatorships. And he had been paid $20,000 by Douglas Whitmore just 3 days ago. They were not just trying to steal my money. They were paying a corrupt doctor to manufacture a diagnosis that would let them do it legally. I thought about canceling the dinner. I thought about confronting them immediately. I thought about going to the police. But then I remembered something Robert used to say. "The best revenge is served cold, Virginia. Let your enemies think they have won right up until the moment they lose everything." I decided to let the dinner party happen, but it would not go the way they planned. October 15th arrived gray and cold, the kind of autumn day where the leaves are falling and everything feels like an ending. I dressed carefully in a navy blue dress, modest but elegant, and I put on the pearl necklace Robert had given me on our 30th anniversary. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time before I left. "This is it, Virginia," I said to my reflection. "This is the moment everything changes." I drove myself to Catherine's house, a large colonial in an upscale suburb that I had helped them purchase with a down payment loan they never repaid. The driveway was full of cars I did not recognize. Whatever was happening, it involved more people than just my immediate family. Douglas answered the door with that oily smile of his. "Virginia," he said warmly, putting his hand on my back to guide me inside. "We are so glad you could make it. Happy birthday." "My birthday is not for another 6 weeks," I said mildly. His smile flickered for just a moment. "Well, we wanted to celebrate early. Come in, come in. Everyone is waiting." The living room was arranged like a stage. Catherine sat on one couch with Harrison beside her. Douglas took a seat in an armchair. There were 2 people I did not recognize, a man and a woman in professional attire, sitting on another couch. And in the corner, looking uncomfortable and scared, sat Amelia. There was also a man in his 60s with gray hair and glasses, sitting apart from the others with a leather folder in his lap. Dr. Reginald Morris, I presumed. "Mom," Catherine said, standing up to kiss my cheek, "thank you for coming. Before we eat, there is something important we need to discuss." "Of course, dear," I said, settling into the chair they had clearly designated for me. "What is it?" She glanced at Douglas, who nodded encouragingly. "Mom," Catherine said, her voice taking on that sweet, patronizing tone I had grown to despise. "We love you very much. You know that. And because we love you, we have been worried, very worried." "About what?" "About you, Mom. About your health. About your safety. About your ability to take care of yourself." "I see," I said calmly. "And what has prompted this concern?" The 2 strangers on the couch shifted uncomfortably. Douglas leaned forward. "Virginia," he said, "we have noticed some changes in you over the past few years. Forgetfulness, confusion, poor judgment. We think it is time to have a serious conversation about your future." I looked at each of them in turn. My daughter, who was trying to look concerned but could not hide the greed in her eyes. My son-in-law, who was practically salivating at the thought of getting his hands on my money. My grandson, who was staring at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. And Amelia, my poor, sweet Amelia, who looked like she wanted to disappear. "Before we continue," I said slowly, "perhaps you could introduce me to the other people in the room. I do not believe we have met." Catherine waved a hand. "Oh, these are just some friends who wanted to be here to support us." "Really?" I said. "The woman on the left looks remarkably like Sarah Mitchell, the social worker from Elder Care Services. And the man next to her appears to be her colleague, James Porter. They are hardly friends, Catherine. They are here to evaluate me. Are they not?" The silence in the room was absolute. "How did you?" Catherine started. "I also recognize Dr. Morris," I continued, nodding toward the man in the corner. "He specializes in geriatric mental health assessments. I understand he charges quite a premium for his services. $20,000, was it not, Douglas? Paid from your personal account 3 days ago." Douglas's face went pale. "Virginia, I do not know what you think you know, but I know everything," I said quietly. "I know about the conservatorship papers you have been preparing. I know about the doctors you have contacted, trying to find someone who would say I have dementia. I know about the credit cards you opened in my name without my knowledge. I know about the $340,000 you have stolen from me over the past 8 years." Catherine stood up abruptly. "Mom, you are being paranoid. This is exactly what we were worried about. You are clearly not well." "I am perfectly well," I said. "I have documentation from 3 separate neurologists confirming that I am mentally competent. I have records of every fraudulent transaction you have made. I have recordings of conversations where you discussed your plans to have me committed so you could take control of my assets." She froze. "Recordings? What recordings?" "Did you really think," I said softly, "that I would not find out? Did you really think I was so old and foolish that I would not protect myself?" There was a long pause, and then Douglas laughed nervously. "Virginia, this is all a misunderstanding. We were just trying to help you. If there were any irregularities with the finances, I am sure we can work it out." I turned to the social workers, who were watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. "Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Porter," I said calmly, "I understand you were brought here under false pretenses. You were told that my family had legitimate concerns about my mental state. I can assure you, they do not. What they have is a scheme to defraud an elderly woman out of her life savings." Sarah Mitchell cleared her throat. "Mrs. Ashford," she said carefully, "if what you are saying is true, that is a very serious allegation. Do you have proof?" "I do," I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick folder. "In here, you will find documentation of every fraudulent account opened in my name. Bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals. Phone records showing my daughter's attempts to access my medical information, and affidavits from my doctors confirming that I am mentally sound." I set the folder on the coffee table. "I also have something else," I said. I looked at Amelia, who was watching me with tears streaming down her face. "Sweetheart, would you like to tell them, or should I?" Every head in the room turned toward my granddaughter. "Amelia," Catherine said sharply, "what is she talking about? What did you do?" Amelia stood up on shaking legs. "I told her," she whispered. "I told Grandma everything. About the lawyers, about Dr. Morris, about the plan to take her house and her money and put her in a nursing home." Catherine's face contorted with rage. "You little traitor," she hissed. "After everything we have done for you, you betrayed your own family." "No, Mom," Amelia said, her voice suddenly stronger. "You betrayed Grandma. She has never been anything but kind to us, and you were going to throw her away like garbage just so you could get her money." Harrison finally looked up. "Amelia, shut up," he said. "You do not know what you are talking about." "Yes, I do," Amelia shot back. "I know that Grandma paid for your school, your car, your clothes, everything you have. And I know you have been counting down the days until she dies so you can inherit more. I have heard you talking about it with your friends." Harrison's face went red. "That is not, I was just—" "Mrs. Ashford," Dr. Morris interjected, his voice smooth and professional. "I think it is clear that there are some family tensions here that need to be addressed. Perhaps we should step back and have a rational conversation about what is best for everyone involved." I turned to him slowly. "Dr. Morris," I said, "are you aware that the medical board has disciplined you twice for ethical violations? That you have been named in 3 lawsuits for providing false diagnoses in conservatorship cases? That you are currently under investigation for taking bribes from families seeking to have elderly relatives declared incompetent?" His face went from confident to terrified in about 2 seconds. "Because I have documentation of all of that as well," I continued, "and I have already forwarded it to the state medical board, along with evidence that you accepted payment from my son-in-law to provide a predetermined diagnosis of my mental state." Dr. Morris stood up abruptly. I should go," he stammered. "This was a mistake. I should never have gotten involved." He practically ran out of the room, leaving his leather folder behind. "Virginia," Douglas said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic, "let us talk about this reasonably. I am sure there is a way we can resolve this situation that works for everyone. I looked at him for a long moment. You know, Douglas, I said quietly, I remember the day you married my daughter. I remember watching you walk down the aisle, and I remember thinking that there was something not quite right about you. But I told myself I was being unfair. I told myself that Catherine loved you, and that was enough. It was not enough. It was never enough. I reached into my purse again and pulled out another document. This, I said, is a cease and desist letter from my attorney, demanding that you immediately stop all attempts to establish a conservatorship over me. If you do not comply, you will face criminal charges for elder abuse, fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Catherine sank back onto the couch. Mom, she said weakly, you do not understand. We were just trying to protect you. No, I said. You were trying to protect yourselves. You were trying to get your hands on my money because Douglas has driven your family into debt with his failed business ventures and gambling addiction. Douglas's head snapped up. I do not have a gambling addiction, he said sharply. I pulled out another paper. According to my private investigator, you have lost over $400,000 at casinos over the past 5 years. That is in addition to the money you have stolen from me and the loans you have taken out against your own house. The silence in the room was crushing. Catherine, I said softly, I raised you. I gave you everything I had. I loved you more than anything in this world, and this is how you repay me. By trying to have me locked away so you can take everything I have. My daughter looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw something like shame in her eyes, but then it was gone, replaced by that hard, calculating expression. You should have just gone along with it, she said coldly. You should have accepted that you are old and useless and let us take care of things. But no, you had to be difficult. You had to make everything harder than it needed to be. I stared at her, this stranger who had once been my child, and I felt something break inside me. Not my heart, that had already been shattered. What broke was the last thread of hope, the last belief that somewhere inside her was the daughter I had loved. Catherine, I said, you are no longer my daughter. From this moment forward, you are dead to me. I am cutting you out of my will entirely. You will receive nothing from me, not now, not ever. She laughed bitterly. You cannot do that. I am your only child, your only family. No, I said. I nodded toward Amelia, who was crying openly now. She is my only family, the only one who showed me any loyalty, the only one who tried to protect me. Amelia, Catherine said warningly. Amelia crossed the room and stood beside me. I want to live with Grandma, she said quietly. I cannot stay here anymore. I cannot be part of this family. You ungrateful little, Harrison started, but Catherine held up a hand to silence him. Fine, she said, her voice dripping with venom. Take the brat. She is useless anyway. But do not think this is over, Mother. I will fight you in court. I will drag your name through the mud. I will make sure everyone knows what a bitter, vindictive old woman you really are. I stood up slowly, taking Amelia's hand in mine. Go ahead, Catherine, I said. Take me to court. Drag my name through the mud. Make accusations. Tell lies. I have the truth on my side, and the truth always wins in the end. I walked toward the door, then paused and looked back one final time. You wanted my money, I said. You wanted my house. You wanted everything I spent a lifetime building. But there is one thing you never understood, Catherine. The most valuable thing I have is not my money or my property. It is my dignity. And that is the one thing you will never be able to take from me. I walked out of that house with my granddaughter beside me, and I never looked back. The months that followed were difficult but healing. Amelia moved in with me, and we began the slow process of rebuilding trust and creating a new kind of family, just the two of us against the world. I filed a police report about the financial fraud, and after a lengthy investigation, Catherine and Douglas were charged with multiple counts of elder abuse and identity theft. The case went to trial, and they were both found guilty. Catherine received 5 years in prison. Douglas received 7. Harrison, who was 18 by then and legally an adult, was charged as an accomplice and received 3 years of probation and community service. The day they were sentenced, I sat in the courtroom with Amelia beside me. I watched my daughter being led away in handcuffs, and I waited to feel something, satisfaction, vindication, anything. But all I felt was tired and sad and old. Justice had been served, but at what cost? I had lost my daughter, my grandson, my belief in the family I had built. I had spent my whole life giving and sacrificing and loving, and in the end, it had meant nothing to the people I loved most. But as we walked out of the courthouse that day, Amelia squeezed my hand and said something I will never forget. "Grandma," she said, "I know this is hard, but I want you to know that I am proud of you. You are the strongest person I have ever known." I looked at her, this beautiful young woman who had given up everything to stand beside me, and I realized something important. I had not lost everything. I still had her. I still had my home. I still had my dignity, and I still had years ahead of me, years to live on my own terms, to make my own choices, to be the woman I wanted to be. That night, Amelia and I sat in my garden watching the sunset. The roses were blooming, and the air smelled sweet and clean. It was the first peaceful moment I had experienced in what felt like forever. "Grandma," Amelia asked, "do you ever regret it? Fighting back, I mean. Would it have been easier to just let them win?" I thought about the question for a long time before answering. "Easier, maybe," I said finally, "but not better. There are some things worth fighting for, Amelia. Your home, your dignity, your truth. Those are not things you should ever give up, no matter how hard the fight." She nodded slowly. "I want to be like you when I get older," she said, "strong and brave and unafraid." I smiled and took her hand. "You already are, sweetheart," I said. "You already are." 3 years have passed since that birthday dinner that changed everything. I am 75 years old now, still living in my house, still tending my garden, still making my own decisions. Amelia finished high school with honors and is now studying psychology in college. She says she wants to help elderly people who have been abused by their families. She says my story inspired her. Catherine has reached out to me twice from prison, asking for forgiveness. I have not responded. Some wounds are too deep to heal, some betrayals too profound to forget. Maybe someday I will find it in my heart to forgive her, but not today, not yet. Douglas tried to contact Amelia once, but she blocked his number. Harrison has not spoken to either of us since the trial. I do not know where he is or what he is doing, and truthfully, I do not want to know. Some nights, I still lie awake thinking about everything that happened. I think about the daughter I lost, the years I wasted, the love I gave that was never returned. I think about Robert and wonder if he would be proud of me, or if he would be sad that things turned out this way. But most of all, I think about the lesson I learned, the hard, painful lesson that took me 72 years to understand. Love is precious, family is sacred, but self-respect is everything. The people who truly love you will never ask you to sacrifice your dignity, and the ones who do were never worth your love in the first place. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is tell our truth and let others know they are not alone. My name is Virginia Ashford. I am 75 years old, and this is my story. The story of how I almost lost everything and found something even more valuable in the end. The truth about who I really am. But let me tell you about the moments in between. the quiet moments that matter just as much as the dramatic ones. Let me tell you about the night before the trial began, when Amelia found me sitting alone in the dark living room at 3 in the morning. "Grandma," she said softly, padding into the room in her pajamas, "why are you not sleeping?" I looked at her, this brave young woman who had given up her whole family to stand with me, and I could not find the words to explain. How do you tell a 16-year-old that you are terrified, that despite all your planning, all your evidence, all your righteous anger, a part of you is still afraid that you might lose? "Come sit with me," I said instead, patting the cushion beside me. She curled up next to me the way she used to when she was little, tucking her feet under her and leaning her head against my shoulder. "I am scared too," she said quietly. "What if the judge does not believe us? What if Mom finds a way to get out of it? What if they come after you again?" "Then we will fight again," I said, "and we will keep fighting until we win." "But what if we do not win?" I took her hand in mine and held it tight. "Amelia," I said, "there was a time in my life when I thought winning meant keeping the peace at all costs. I thought it meant sacrificing myself so that everyone else could be happy. I thought it meant staying silent when I should have spoken, staying small when I should have stood tall. But I was wrong. Winning is not about outcomes. Winning is about standing up for yourself even when you are scared. Winning is about telling the truth even when it hurts. Winning is about looking at the people who tried to destroy you and saying, 'No, you do not get to do this.' That is what we are doing, Amelia. We are winning every single day, no matter what happens in that courtroom." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. "I wish Dad and Mom and Harrison could understand that," she whispered. "I wish they could see what they threw away. I wish they could too, sweetheart. But some people are so blinded by their own greed and fear that they cannot see what is right in front of them. They cannot see the love they are destroying, the relationships they are burning, the futures they are sacrificing for money that will never make them happy. Do you think they will ever understand?" "Maybe," I said, "someday, but that is not our responsibility anymore. Our responsibility is to ourselves, to each other, to building a life that is worth living. We cannot fix them, Amelia. We can only fix ourselves." We sat there in the darkness until the sun came up, watching the light slowly fill the room, listening to the birds begin their morning songs. It was one of the most peaceful moments of my life. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Every day I sat in that courtroom listening to attorneys argue about my life, my money, my sanity. Every day I watched my daughter and her husband deny everything, twist the facts, try to paint me as a confused old woman who was making up stories. But the evidence was overwhelming. The bank records, the phone logs, the testimony from Marcus Webb and Theodore Gaines, and the doctors who had evaluated me. The testimony from Dr. Morris, who had agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence on his own charges. And most powerfully, the testimony from Amelia, who stood in front of a judge and jury and told them exactly what she had heard, exactly what she had seen, exactly why she had chosen to betray her own parents. I remember the moment when the jury foreman stood up to read the verdict. I remember the silence in the courtroom, so thick you could feel it pressing against your skin. I remember looking at Catherine, who was staring straight ahead with an expression of utter certainty, convinced until the very end that she would somehow get away with it. "On the charge of elder abuse," the foreman said, "we find the defendant, Catherine Elizabeth Whitmore, guilty. On the charge of identity theft, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. On the charge of financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, guilty." With each word, I watched my daughter's face change. The certainty crumbled into disbelief, then into anger, then into something I had never seen on her face before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Douglas collapsed when they read his verdict. He literally fell to his knees on the courtroom floor, sobbing and begging for mercy. Catherine just stood there, frozen, staring at the jury as if she could change their minds through sheer force of will. Neither of them looked at me. Neither of them acknowledged what they had done or the pain they had caused. Even in that moment of defeat, they could not bring themselves to take responsibility. The sentencing came 3 weeks later. Catherine got 5 years. Douglas got 7. The judge called their actions reprehensible and premeditated, and a profound betrayal of the most sacred bonds of family. As they were led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, Catherine finally turned to look at me. I expected to see hatred in her eyes, or maybe resentment. Instead, I saw something worse: emptiness. She looked at me like I was a stranger, like the 47 years of love and sacrifice between us meant nothing at all. "I hope you are happy," she said flatly. "You destroyed this family." "No, Catherine," I replied softly. "You did." They took her away, and I never saw her again. The house felt different after that, quieter but also lighter, as if some heavy weight had been lifted from the walls. Amelia and I began the slow process of building a new normal, just the two of us finding our way forward. I converted the spare bedroom into a study for her, with a big desk and good lighting and shelves for all her books. She threw herself into her schoolwork with an intensity I had never seen before, determined to make something of herself, determined to prove that she was not defined by her parents' choices. Some nights, I would hear her crying in her room, and I would sit outside her door, waiting until she was ready to talk. Some nights, she would come to me instead, crawling into my bed like she used to when she was small, seeking comfort in my presence. "Grandma," she asked one night, about 6 months after the trial, "do you ever wonder what Mom is doing right now? In prison, I mean." I thought about the question carefully. "Sometimes," I admitted. "I wonder if she is okay. I wonder if she is getting the help she needs. I wonder if she will ever understand what she did and why it was wrong." "Do you miss her?" That was harder to answer. "I miss who I thought she was," I said finally. "I miss the daughter I believed I was raising, but I do not know if that daughter ever really existed, or if I just invented her in my mind." Amelia was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I do not miss her. I know that makes me a terrible person, but I do not. I miss having a mom, but I do not miss the mom I actually had." Does that make sense? "It makes perfect sense," I said. "And it does not make you a terrible person. It makes you honest. Grief is complicated, Amelia. You can mourn what you lost and still be relieved that it is over. You can love someone and hate what they did to you. Those things are not mutually exclusive." She nodded slowly, processing. "I think I needed to hear that," she said. "I have been feeling so guilty, like there is something wrong with me because I do not cry over them the way I am supposed to." "There is no supposed to when it comes to emotions," I told her. "You feel what you feel, and that is valid. The only thing that matters is that you keep moving forward, keep growing, keep becoming the person you want to be. Everything else will work itself out in time." She fell asleep in my arms that night, and I lay there watching her breathe, thinking about all the moments that had led us to this point. The betrayal, the fear, the fight, the victory, and now this quiet peace, this unexpected gift of a second chance at family. I had spent my whole life taking care of other people, my husband, my daughter, my grandchildren. I had given and given and given until there was nothing left. And what had it gotten me? Betrayal, abandonment, a plot to steal everything I had worked for. But lying there with Amelia in my arms, I realized something important. All that giving had not been wasted. All that love had not been lost. It had just been waiting for the right person to receive it. It had been waiting for Amelia. The following year brought its own challenges. Amelia struggled to adjust to her new reality, a reality without parents, without a brother, without the family she had known her whole life. There were days when she was angry, days when she was sad, days when she did not want to get out of bed. I let her feel what she needed to feel. I did not try to fix her or rush her or tell her that everything would be okay. I just stayed beside her, steady and present, letting her know that she was not alone. Slowly, gradually, she began to heal. She made new friends at school, kids who did not know about her family history, who accepted her for who she was rather than where she came from. She joined the debate team and the community service club and started volunteering at a local nursing home, visiting with elderly residents who had no family of their own. "She is going to be something special," one of the nurses told me during a visit. "She has a gift with the older folks. They just light up when she walks in the room." "I know," I said proudly. "She gets it from me." Amelia graduated high school with honors 2 years after the trial. I sat in the audience watching her walk across that stage, and I cried like a baby. Tears of joy, of pride, of gratitude for this unexpected blessing that had come out of the worst moment of my life. She gave a speech as valedictorian, a speech about resilience and truth and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it costs you everything. "I have learned," she said, looking out at the audience with those clear, brave eyes of hers, "that family is not always the people you are born to. Sometimes family is the person who chooses you when everyone else walks away. My grandmother chose me. She saved me, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that gift." There was not a dry eye in the auditorium. After the ceremony, she ran to me and threw her arms around my neck. "I did it, Grandma," she said. "I really did it." "You did," I replied, holding her tight, "and I am so incredibly proud of you." That night, we had a small party at the house, just me and Amelia and a few of her closest friends. We ate cake and laughed and talked about the future, about all the possibilities that lay ahead. As the evening wound down and the guests drifted away, Amelia and I found ourselves alone in the garden, sitting on the same bench where we had sat so many times before. "Grandma," she said, "I have been thinking." "About what?" "About everything that happened. About Mom and Dad and Harrison. About how close I came to being just like them." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, before you fought back, I was on their side. I believe what they told me about you. I thought you were confused and difficult and that they were just trying to help. If you had not discovered the truth, I would have gone along with their plan. I would have helped them put you in that nursing home. I would have been part of destroying your life. But you did not," I said firmly. "When it mattered, when you found out the truth, you did the right thing." "Only because you showed me what courage looks like," she replied. "Only because I saw you stand up for yourself and refuse to be a victim. If you had just accepted it, if you had let them win, I would never have known there was another way." We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the crickets sing their evening song. "I have a question," she said eventually. "What is it?" "Do you think people can change? I mean, really change, deep down. Do you think Mom could ever be different?" I thought about the question for a long time. "I believe," I said carefully, "that change is always possible. But it requires something most people are not willing to give. It requires honesty, brutal, unflinching honesty about who you are and what you have done. It requires taking responsibility without making excuses. It requires feeling the full weight of the harm you have caused and sitting with that pain until it transforms you. Can Mom do that? I do not know, I admitted. Some people can. Some people get knocked down so hard that they have no choice but to rebuild themselves from the ground up. But others just get angry. They blame everyone else for their problems. They convince themselves they were the victim all along. They never change because they never accept that they needed to change in the first place. Which one do you think mom is? I looked at my granddaughter, at this wise, beautiful, wounded young woman who deserves so much better than the family she was born into. I think, I said gently, that is something she will have to decide for herself. And it is something you will have to decide too, Amelia. Whether you want her in your life when she gets out, whether you can forgive her, whether you even should. Those are not decisions I can make for you. But whatever you choose, I will support you. Even if I choose to forgive her, even then. Forgiveness is not about the other person, Amelia. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and resentment. If forgiving your mother helps you move forward, then that is the right choice. But if it does not, if letting her go is what you need to heal, that is valid too. She nodded slowly, processing. I think, she said, I am not ready to decide yet. I think I need more time. You have all the time in the world, sweetheart. There is no deadline on healing. She leaned against me, and we watched the stars come out one by one, filling the sky with light. That was 2 years ago. Amelia is in college now, studying psychology like she always wanted. She calls me every Sunday and we talk for hours about her classes, her friends, her hopes for the future. She is thriving. I turned 75 last month. My health is good, my mind is sharp, and my garden has never looked better. I have made new friends, taken up painting, started writing down my memories so that future generations will know my story. Catherine wrote to me again last month. Her letter was different this time, longer and more thoughtful, filled with what seemed like genuine remorse. She said she has been going to therapy in prison. She said she is starting to understand how broken she was, how her fear and greed blinded her to everything that mattered. She asked if I might consider visiting. I have not responded yet. I am still thinking about it. Part of me wants to see her, to look into her eyes and search for some trace of the daughter I once knew. Part of me is afraid of what I might find, or worse, what I might not find. But I am not in a hurry. If there is one thing I have learned in 75 years, it is that wisdom comes from waiting, from letting things unfold in their own time, from trusting that the answers will reveal themselves when we are ready to hear them. What I know for certain is this: I am not the woman I was 3 years ago. I am not the invisible mother, the quiet grandmother, the woman who gave until there was nothing left. I am Virginia Ashford. I am a survivor. I am a fighter. I am someone who faced the worst betrayal imaginable and came out the other side stronger than before. And I have a message for every woman out there who has been made to feel small, who has been told she is too old or too useless or too much of a burden. You are none of those things. You are valuable. You are worthy. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And if the people in your life cannot give you that, then they do not deserve to have you in their lives. Stand up for yourself. Tell your truth. Fight for what is yours. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can save you is you, and you are absolutely worth saving. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, because we are never as alone as we think we are. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is let someone know that their story matters. My name is Virginia Ashford. I am 75 years old. I have been betrayed by my own blood, fought for my dignity, and found family in the most unexpected place. And this, all of this, is my truth.